Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking the ride with Transcendental Waves. I'm Jeff Bailey.
And I'm Michael Burrows. Today, we're going to talk about how long humans have been around on this planet. When I was growing up, we're told that there's all these different kinds of species of humans, Homo erectus and Neanderthals, all these different things. It can be kind of confusing. And we're Homo sapiens. So we could start with that. How long has Homo sapiens been on the planet? But then we can go a little deeper and see all the pre-generations before Homo sapiens, all the way back to the first one. And this changes. I think when we were in school, do you remember what we were being taught back when we were in school?
To be honest, I don't think that I remember being taught about any of the other species. Maybe like Neanderthals, but it was almost like that was like,
The extent.
yeah, like maybe that was it, all we were taught about in school. And then, like, after school, you go in and start digging into like all these other different species and realizing, you know, some version of humans have been here for, over a million years, 2, 3 million even. It's like, and some of the carbon dating records are like, a lot of the like, people will argue against like carbon dating and say that, it's off, but it's still like, even if it's off like a couple 100,000 years or something, I mean, I don't know, that's still millions of years.
Right. And then you have the other. There's other ways to identify time periods other than carbon dating,
Right.
because like there's geological evidence. If you know there's been something that's been submerged for so long or hidden since the last ice age or whatever, you can date it back from that ice age and just go back. Well, it's been this long. That's it's interesting you bring that up, because when I first started trying to investigate, how long we've been here, it's almost like you run into a split. There's half of the people in the world that say they don't believe in dating by carbon, and they don't believe that people have been here longer than 5 or 6 thousand years, because that's what the church tells them. And then you have the other half of the people that are really trying to investigate this, and they have found out about 2 million, 3 million years ago. And that is a big difference.
And Homo sapiens, just like quote unquote modern humans, have been around even like 200,000 years. So that still like shatters what the church and like, I mean, I think basically like what the church is trying to say is that like, we didn't even, we were just like not around. And then as soon as we existed, the world just exploded into like we had written history and all this stuff just came out of it. Because about the time like the church says is, about the time that like we have like the first
Forms of writing
language
and
and
language.
writing and cities and stuff like that. So it's like about the time that like this iteration of humanity, like I mean, if you think about like the Graham Hancocks and Billy Carsons of the world talking about ancient civilizations and how like, you know, this is just another cycle of us living as a human species after whatever disaster or whatever, and we're building like it's like this iteration of humanity believes all humans started at the beginning of our timeline, and I mean that's a little bit arrogant to me. Like,
So it's kind of like where the church says it's where it's began. It's not where it began. It's just where our current form of writing and language originated at that time. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
yeah, I mean, you could boil it down to like, I mean, the Bible, all of our like current religions came out of this whatever
Period. That
catastrophe,
right.
like whatever this same period of time. Like, yeah, like our beginnings, like
Yeah, that's what I've come to the conclusion too. And that started, I think, in Sumeria, and we got in Mesopotamia. Then you start looking in Africa, and there's so many videos out there that show you where people came from. Um, I think I think we came out of Africa, probably. What do you think?
I mean, the whole mitochondrial Eve. There's the I mean, to me, that's almost like kind of some a little bit of evidence for the whole like Anunnaki thing, where it's just like they say that there's like we all came from one woman in Africa, like and I mean the Homo sapien lineage. I mean, maybe we were put into through some like genetic testing. I mean, there were several other like hominid species back then. I don't know, man. Like, I just think that like,
Have you ever wondered why those other hominoid species aren't not around anymore? What do you think that is for?
well, I mean, if it just seems like we probably killed them. Like to me,
That's what I'm thinking too. Like,
I mean, the whole like going back to like I just like you read like the Graham Hancock stuff, and I can't remember like which ones of his books because he has a bunch of cool books. Some of them are about psychedelics, some of them are about different things, but a lot he has several. I think Fingerprints of the Gods is one of the ones that is about like the ancient civilizations. But it's you just think about we have these stories that come up, and this is our like lineage, but like these things have happened, you know, if we've been around for 200,000 years, like, and you look at like Gobekli Tepe, like, is one of those, but then you like have these maps, the Perry Reese map that has Antarctica on it, and at that point they didn't know what Antarctica was in our timeline. Like, and the same thing with like Sumer, and they have like stone carvings with all the planets in our solar system and where they're put in this like in order of like where they're at, and it's just like they shouldn't have known those kind of things. So like, where does this information come from? Like, I mean, to me it seems like, you know, if the world was to like be bombed today, like, there'd be some people that would survive. We would come out and tell the story of what our world used to be and how it used to be and how it came to be, and like, that gets passed around for a few like for 10,000 years, and this is what you have. Like, I don't.
yeah, that's the same thing that I think too. And I had this little thing today. I was thinking, like, you know, what if God's chosen people were the Homo sapiens and all those other Homo people that we killed, in fighting? The Bible's full of war stories, the first of it, and so I believe those are all just parables, stories and stuff. Probably not even real history the way it is shown, but it could be, you know.
I mean, I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. God's chosen people.
because
That's where
we
that comes from.
because we probably did. I mean, killed them, intentionally, just like we,
Do now.
just like we, yeah, just like there's lots of genocides going all over the world right now. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that like I do think that that's probably a big part of it. There's who knows, man, like the Neanderthals and like the Homo erectus and all these other species could have had, evolutionary deficiencies, but it seems like, I mean, if we take the archaeological evidence to be fact that, like, these species were existed for 10 times longer than we've existed up to this current point, so they probably like were doing fine with as far as like evolution and like biological like characteristics that fit in with their environment. So like it probably wasn't they just all like got cancer and died out or like
because
froze to death.
they
Like,
were around a lot longer than
right,
us.
they dealt with a lot more of these like different like climate changes. Like, that's the thing. Like, you can go and like they had these ice core samples of like what the weather was like basically for like the last millions of years on this earth. They go do these like ice core samples in Antarctica and different places, Greenland, like, and they can tell us what the global conditions were like basically weather wise. They can't tell us, who was there and who's doing what. But then they find these skeletons or whatever that are remains from these different times, and it's just like, well, they would have had to have survived through these different ice ages or different things. So that, I mean,
They were a strong human
yeah,
race.
yeah, like humanoids have been living for upwards of 3 million years, and the if you look at through the different changes the Earth has gone through in those same 3 million years, I mean, like,
It hasn't gone through anything significant as it,
other than us,
right.
we are the most significant thing to happen on the planet in the last 200,000 years, and like we became to existence around 2 to 300,000 years ago, and there are no remains basically that we've found older than like 10 to 12,000 years of another hominoid species. Like,
Yep.
So
So
in
they-
less, a couple 100,000 years, we basically eradicated the planet of everything that was like us. Any competitor.
Yep. Damn, Jeff. I think we just hit every key point that I thought we were going to talk about today.
Yeah, man. Like. I think the beginning of humanity is one of those things that it's like most people are like, why does it matter? Like, who cares? Like, if the church is right or if you guys are right. Well, my thing is it's not about being right. I don't even know that like I'm giving a bunch of big estimates because I don't know an exact answer. But the way that like the church kind of sells you like this is the way it is should kind of lead you to question like why do they need that to be the story? Like, and then like look into all these other researchers, and why would any of these people lie to you? Like, why would we invent like these different humanoid species? People like the church would argue that there's no missing link, and there's no way that we could have gone from monkeys to man, and it's a lot more complicated than that, and there are like several different like quote unquote missing links. Like there's way more species of humanoids that have existed in the last 3 million years that they have found that like
Yeah, we might find more. Like they're every year almost. They're every so often they find new species that we didn't know
giants,
about.
dwarfs, all these different like
And it's like the deeper
versions.
you go, like digging wise, the older you get, and it's like, I mean, we're still excavating some very top level stuff. Just think when we can start exploring deeper things.
Yeah, the Gobekli Tepes, the like the Bimini roads, like those kind of things where you're just looking like off the coastlines where they're finding these like
These were major things. These humans built major things like 12,000 years ago.
yeah before our last ice age to where we thought we were only cavemen. There is evidence that there are prior civilizations. Like people talk about like Atlantis, but like there might be stuff that actually like existed around the time they thought this place existed. Like that might not be Atlantis and the Atlantis we dream about, but
But it could be a story. It
there's
could be a
something
myth.
out
It could
there.
be a parable about something out there.
These
Yes.
places existed. Like that's I mean, it might not be the exact same thing we're talking about that we've gotten because we're playing like the telephone game or whatever and the story changes over years, but
Humans have been playing the telephone game for 3 million years.
yeah, and I mean, I do think that like, I mean, I think that we've figured it out multiple times, and that's a thing. Like, there's natural disasters, great wars, whatever happens to cause the resets on this planet. Like people talk about, like axes flipping on, like on the planet and destroying everything. There's multiple different things that could cause a reset, and I think that like our goal is to try to, like live as peaceful as possible. I don't know that you know we're talking about like we wiped out every other like humanoid in existence. Like I mean, maybe it was a natural disaster and the whole like Noah's Ark story is true for God's chosen people. Like who knows, man? Like I don't like I mean the whole like Anunnaki story to me like I mean, sounds pretty cool, man, and that could make us God's chosen people because those aliens came down and took over a planet, created a race of people to be slaves, and then one of them started to feel bad and decided to set us free. But like, they basically helped us eradicate the rest of the planet, and
Yeah, it could
who
be.
knows, man? Like, I just like that's a pretty cool story to me. Like, and it's just like, we can talk about different things, different ways to look at it, but
All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening today, and we will check you out next time. We love you.
see you guys. Peace.